Good evening, everyone.
Kavod Rav, how are you?
Baruch Hashem, thank you. Okay, okay. My volume is okay?
Yes, Kavod Rav. Thank you.
Okay, good. I'm glad. Okay. Yeah, okay, so we're continuing with the laws of blessings. Now he's getting into, I think we're doing hay. Yes, yes, we're doing hay. So it says over here in the Torah, שקדים המרים קטנים בורא פרי עץ, גדולים ולא כלום. So what does this mean? We're talking here about almonds, right? Um, so he says there's different types, right? So we have the little ones that are bitter. Those are going to be borei ha'etz, and the big ones, nothing. We don't bless on that. Interesting, right? Why don't we bless on it? So we'll see now. It says in the Bet Yosef, Ken Katva Rabbeinu Yonah, right? That's what it says. Rabbeinu Yonah, Ve'arosh, Rashba. They all said the same thing. Beresh Perek Kitzad Mevrachim, right? All of them in the Masechet Brachot. B'Shem HaBahag, name of the Bahag. V'Tama de Milta, the Keshehem Ktanim Ikar Achilatam. So he says, what's the reason for that? Because when they're small, right, that's when people like to eat them, you know? He Haklipa Benam Mara. Right, so he says it's not bitter at that time. But it says Keshem Gdolim, when they get bigger, Ikar Achilatam Hu Mabifnim Vehu Mar. So he says then it becomes more bitter, you know? So that's the thing. So basically, right, we're saying what we said before yesterday. It's just echoing that sentiment, which is that, when something is really too bitter to eat, we can't bless on that nothing because you're not enjoying it at all. So same thing here, So great. So it goes on. V'din shkedim metukim have yivcha. So he says, but what about, then you have another type of almonds, which is the sweet ones. Right? Katnutan mevarech shakol. So there, right, what happens is that when they're small, you bless shakol, right? So usually when you bless shakol on something from a tree, it's because it's not really in its proper state. It's inferior, as we mentioned yesterday. So same thing also over here. When they're small, they're inferior, so the blessing becomes shakol. Kshem Dolim, once they get bigger, mevarech borei pi'etz. So then we do borei pi'etz, right? The normal blessing, right? Because that's when the good taste comes in there, I guess, right? Whatever. וכמו שהתבהר בסימן רד', like it's going to be explained in chapter 204. Okay. ואף על פי שהראש מגמגם לומר, תשקדים המרים קטנים מברכים להם שהכל. Right, so the Rosh is saying differently, right? That we make shakol on the little ones which are bitter. דבריו נוטים לומר שמברכים עליהם בורא פרי העץ, but he says he's leaning towards saying בורא פרי העץ. לכן סתם רבנו ברכתם מברכים להם בורפי העץ. That's why the Torah said we bless בורפי העץ. ומה שכתב, ואם מתקן על ידי האור, now what she wrote that, now we have another option, which is that even though sometimes these fruits are bitter, right, as we said, right, you can sweeten it by, roasting it or whatever. So if that's the case, you're gonna roast it to sweeten it, or some other way to sweeten it. Then borei pi'etz, right? It's gonna be borei pi'etz because now you're really enjoying it. There you go. וכן כתבו שם רבנו יונה, that's what says רבנו יונה ראש. Okay, so that's what he's saying pretty much, right? Okay, great. So that's the law of almonds. Let's go to Shulchan Aruch and see what we got. So it says like this. Shkadim amarim. Again, right? As we said, we have two types of almonds. We have the bitter type, right? Kishem ktanim mevarech borei pri'etz. So there, when they're small, blessings borei pri'etz. So it seems like this is like an inferior species of almonds, basically, right? That's what it is, because they're not really good. They're like bitter. So it's probably not the ones that we eat because the ones that we eat, they're never bitter. You know what I mean? They're always good. So probably we don't. It's not doesn't come into our diet. This thing. It's probably not worth anything today. Nobody wants to eat this stuff. But anyway, right? If you had it, right? Theoretically speaking, this would be the way you would do it. And so when they're small, borei pi'etz, and then right, gedolim when they get big, v'lo klum mazukim mezkeh. So there, right? It says we don't bless nothing when they're big. Why? Because they already are harmful. They're not even then they don't give you any nutrition. Just the opposite, right? They give you a stomach ache, whatever it is, right? Whatever it is. But Tama de Milta, so what's the reason for this? So he says, as we already mentioned in the Torah, so he says, with this species, the bitter one, when it's small, so then, right, the main thing that you eat there is the shell. And it's not bitter, the shell. Very interesting. And therefore we make borei pi'etz. But it says when they're bigger, so then right the main eating there is what you eat inside, right? The nut itself. So there, right, it's bitter, so therefore we don't bless nothing on that. Okay, so that's right, species number one. Now species number two, right? Right. So then he says, but if you're gonna fix it up with right by cooking it or roasting it, whatever it is, right, that kind of stuff, or some other way. So then it's gonna be hayetz. Okay, interesting. So the interesting thing here is that he doesn't even mention the other type. Why is that? Right? He doesn't mention that. Even though we saw that in the tour, here he doesn't mention it. Why is that? There must be a reason. So, all right, let me see the Mishnah Berurah, what he says about that. That's very interesting. There must be a reason why he doesn't mention it. Maybe it's because people don't eat it today. I don't know. Maybe that's the thing. Oh, I see. Okay, so you know what it says, Mishnah Berurah here? That he brings the other one in chapter 204. It seems like he separated it into two different the locations. Go figure. I don't know why he did that exactly, but it is what it is. What can you do? So the other one he brings over there, the large species. All right, so I guess we'll wait. I hate to keep you in suspense, but we'll have to wait till we get there. I hope you can wait, have some patience. I'm sorry. Okay, so we'll move on. Anyway, the ones that we buy in the store, they're not bitter at all. So, we just make borei piats on that, and that's it. I mean, pretty simple stuff. Nothing to talk about there. Okay, so let's go to Vav. Hmm. So let's go back there. Bet Yosef. Let's see what we got. So now, right, he brings another type of fruit, whatever, tree kind of thing. So he says talaf, right? V'hu min ilan she'alav ro'in la'achila. Right, so he says, right, there's a type of tree, called talaf. We'll have to get an English translation for this, what this is. But anyway, right, he says the point is that with this thing, the leaves are edible there. Let's see inside the tour how he describes this. So says the tour, it's a type of fruit, and as we said, right, the leaves are edible. V'yesh be'alav kamin temarot. So he says, also what happens is, right, that there are some kind of a fruit there, berry. There's a berry there, and he says that's also edible. Al he'alin v'atmarot. Right. So he says, so you have two things, right? You have the leaves, which are edible, and also the berry. So he says, right, but those berries, they're like on the leaves. Interesting. So he says, on that stuff, what do we bless? Bore Priyadama. So why is that? Why don't we bless Bore Priyadetz? So he says, She'eno ikara pri, because it's not really the main fruit. Interesting. So therefore, we bless Bore Priyadama. It's not the main product of the tree, those leaves and berries. That's the reason why. And okay, so let's see, but Yosef, how he explains that. I think, I've seen this translated that it means the caper tree. Caper. Does that make any sense? Let me see if I can find something on my phone. How they translate this. Let's see. Uh-huh. So here it says it's sniper, whatever that is. Go figure. Oh no, that's not it. That's not it. No, no, no. Sniper is something else. We're talking about the guys, those guys who shoot from the roof. That's not all we need. Hmm. No. Whatever. Okay, I guess we'll settle with that now for now. Anyway, so I think they call it the keeper tree, something like that. So let's see the Beit Yosef. We don't really eat from it today. Says Bet Yosef, Berosh Perek Ketzad Mevarchim. It's in Brachot. Lamed Vav Amud Aleph. Amar Rav Yuda Amar Rav, right? This rabbi said, Tzalaf shel Ola bechutz al haaretz zorek et ha'avionot ve'ochel et ha'kafrisin. Right? The Memra. So he says, right, that if you have this kind of tree, right, in the diaspora, you throw away one part of it and you eat the other stuff, right? The Memra de Avionot perad. So he says that means that are you saying that Evionot is fruit? The Kafrisin la pera and Kafrisin is not fruit. Vermino al mine natzpa al alin ve'al temerot omer borei pi adama. But then it brings another brayta which says different, right? That on this kind of thing, tree, you make on the leaves and all the berries borei pi adama, as we said on the tour. Ve'al avionot and right the other stuff. Ve'al Al Kafrisin, Omer Borei Priyatz, and he says Borei Priyatz on the other stuff. Who the Amar Rabbi Akiva? He said like Rabbi Akiva the Tan that we learned in the Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Tzalaf Mitaser. Rabbi Eliezer says that this tzalaf, right, the tree, whatever, it does get we take maaser from there. Tamarot be'avionot be'kafrisin. In other words, you master everything there, all the product of the tree. Rabbi Akiva Omer en mitaser ela evionot. But Rabbi Akiva says no, only evionot bilbad. Because that's the fruit of it. Rashi minet natzpa. So Rashi explains, right? Who tzalaf? That's the same thing as the tzalaf, right? This keeper tree, whatever they call it. The fig shegadelim bo kama mine achila. So he says there's like several edible things that grow on that tree. Krele mine. So that calls it like different types. Timarot betocha alim gdelim. So he says these berries, right? As we said, they grow like inside the leaves. Kamin timarot boltin, and they stick out, right? Baala be'ale from on the leaf. Kimo baalin shel arava. So it says it resembles like the leaves of the of that tree, right? Which is the which they use for the four species. Right? What do they call that? Willow, the willow tree, like the leaves of the willow tree. Evionot, right? Hu apri. So it says evionot. That's like the fruit of the tree. Evionot, right? Kafrisin hu klipa gedola. So it says the kafrisin is what? It's like a shell around it, which is around the fruit. Okay, so Rashi explains it pretty well. One is the fruit and one is the shell. But, so it says it resembles like nuts, hazelnuts, whatever, something like that. Wow. Oh. Dakim, right? And they're, like it says, they're thin. The ita tu b'gemara. It says also in the Gemara there, Ravina ashkeche lamor baravashet dekaz zari zevionot b'ka achil kafrisin. So it says Ravina found, right, this rabbi, that he would throw away the avionot, which is the fruit, and he would eat the kafrisin, right, which is the shell, as we said. Katav Arif says the Arif regarding this. Kapei Amud Bet, alzeh. This is ve'ilchata achi. So he says the halacha is like that. Umidalgin umidalgabe orla lav pariu. So he says since regarding orla, it's not really called a fruit. Gabe bracha nami la pera. So it's also not a fruit when it comes to blessing. And we don't bless on it, אלא בורא פי אדמה. Rather, we do בורא פי אדמה. Right. So why is that? Because it's not exactly the fruit, right? It's a shell, even though it's edible. Pri Adama, B'katav Rosh says the Rosh alav regarding this. V'lo neheras. It doesn't agree with the Rif. The mashma dehad de'achil mor barabash asher kaprisin lav mishum de'alacha Rabbi Akiva. So it says because this rabbi, the reason why he was eating these shells is not because the halacha is like Rabbi Akiva, rather ela mishum de'mekil ba'aretz halacha kamoto. So he says because we go like the lenient opinion when it comes to these issues, right? About regarding these farming issues, I don't whatever you want to call them, right? So yeah, the chutzaz b'chivan de bar beretz Yisrael perahu. So he says since in Eretz Israel is considered to be fruit, lenient bracha for blessing, nami. So he says therefore also regarding blessings. Nami pera, who's also considered to be a fruit. Ve'en chiluk bebracha ben bechutz haaretz ben ba'aretz. So he says that, but there's no difference between, in Israel or the diaspora, same blessing. V'kaim alam kahi braita says we don't hold like says we hold like that braita. The ikar hu the parchina mina Rav, because we objected from there on Rav. Le'el umashma de Rav sivira le kivaten implies that Rav holds like that. Ela the mekil k'Rabbi Akiva, but he's lenient to Rabbi Akiva. Who starts when it comes to in diaspora? Chen katvu tosot. That's what's in Tosfot. About dat Rashba, but the Rashba holds kiarif like the Rif. Okay, the chen dat Rambam. Right. So it seems like the majority is going like the Rambam here. All right, sounds good. So let's see what we got here. Shulchan Aruch, right? Not so practical for us because we don't really eat from this tree. But anyway, right, we'll just read through it. It's very, very brief, very short. So let's see what we got. So it says, right, tzalaf, right, as we said, tzalaf. So he explains in the parentheses over here, right, the Ramah. It's a type of tree, and the as we said, right, the leaves are edible. And also, right, there's berries, growing out of the leaves, sticking out of the leaves. Right. Then we have evianot, two pre what pre. So evianot is a fruit, right? And that's miatzlap v'krasinin klipa, right? So it says, and then you have also the shell, which is around the fruit, klipot egozim, just like a nut, the hazelnut, whatever. So what do we do with this thing, right? Bottom line, al he'alin ve'al tamarot. When it comes to the leaves and right the those berries, right, ve'al kafrisin, and also the shell, bar piyadama. All these are bar piyadama. So right again, just to reiterate, why is that bar piyadama? Because it's not the main fruit of the tree, right? But it's somewhat edible. It's edible. It's edible. That's what it says. And but it's inferior because it's not the main fruit of the tree. But but then you have the main fruit, right, from the tree there, right? That one, it's going to be because that's the main fruit of the tree. So, in other words, even though we don't, practically eat this stuff, but we learn here some concepts in halakha, right, which are important to know in order to understand the laws of blessings. Okay, great. So let's move on. Now we're going to go to dates. Okay, that's good. Uh, okay. So it says here, Timarim shikitashan ktsat, right? So he's talking here, the tour, about dates, as we said, right? But they're a little bit like crushed, like mashed. So what happens with that? Uh, I'm going to look inside the tour. So he says, "Ve'enan merusakin." It's not like totally mashed up, totally, but a little bit crushed. Legamre. So what's the blessing on that? Borei pi ha'etz, right? You're going to bless ha'etz on that. Okay, makes sense. So what is it teaching you here, right? That even though it's a little bit mashed up, it's still, the same fruit as it was before. Nothing has changed. So it's the same blessing. That's what we're saying. Okay, so Bet Yosef says here, "V'ilchata tamre ve'abdinhu terima mevarchin aleu borei pri etz." So he's right. He says it brings a Gemara, right? And it says there that if he mashed up the dates, as we said, right, it's still bari piaitz. My tamad v'miltayu kaime, because they're still like in the same form. Just because you mashed it a little bit, right, doesn't really change what it is. Rashi explains terima davar katush ktsat, a little bit mashed. He says, right, Rashi. Venot merusak, but it's not totally like right, totally pureed, not like that. Umashma bidvarav sheim haya merusak. So it implies from his words, Rashi, that if it was pureed, like totally, like turned it into some kind of a butter, that's some kind of a thing there, a spread. He made a spread out of it. Sheim haya merusak legame en merachim la borei piatz. Then it would not be borei piatz. V'chen yireh midivrei Rabbeinu. So that's what it seems from the Torah as well. V'chen katuv be'or tumat hadeshen, also tumat deshen. But the Rambam says differently, right? That what? כתב תמרים שמעיכן בהוציא גרעינין שלהם ועשן כמו עיסה מברך עליהם תחילה בורא פי העץ. So the Rambam says even though you have it like mashed up, pretty much, like a spread, kind of thing, it's still בורא פי העץ. ובסוף בורא אחד מן שלוש. And also the final blessing is going to be על העץ, right? כתבו את רבינו בסמוך, so it says the two wrote this close by. כתב דאפשר שגם רי מודה לרמב"ם. And he says it could be that Ri also, agrees with the Rambam here. Okay, that's good to know. Okay, great. So that's a good thing. Let's go to Shulchan Aruch. Let's see what we got. So it says Shulchan Aruch like this: Tamarim shemiachan be'ad ve'asam mehem isa. Right. So he brings the Rambam's language, right, which is that he like totally mashed up these dates. Ve'otzim mehem garinehem. And right, he took out the pits, right? So he says, nevertheless, right, the blessing has not changed. So therefore, the blessing is going to be bori priyates. And in the end, it's going to be right ala perot. That's our custom, by the way. The Sephardim go like this. Okay, so so therefore, if you buy like this kind of a spread, like which is made from dates or any other fruit for that matter, right? It's all the same. It's going to be porei piaitz. And because of that, I'm sorry,
but not date honey.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Pretty much. That's
even date honey is prihatz.
Well, now explain to me, right? This honey, how do they make it? Pretty much, it's like it's pureed, right? That's what it is.
But it's not significantly different from the food it came from.
Do they cook it also? They cook it the honey?
I'm not sure.
Anyway, I think it's borei piaitz, right? According to what we're saying here, it's basically like a spread. Date honey, yeah. By the way, you should know that every time it says in the Torah, davash, honey, it means date honey. That's what it means. The Torah is not talking about bees honey. Just so you should know, right? So that is our honey, that's the main honey that we have, according to the Torah. So therefore, right, it's going to be borei piaitz, yes, according to Sephardi custom. According to Ashkenazi custom, it's going to be shakol. as we're going to see, right? Either here or somewhere else. We're going to see it pretty soon. So it says over here, the Rama, ולפי זה הוא הדין בלטברן, נקרא פבידלה. Oh, okay. You know it's pabidla, right? You know this word, what this means. That means jelly, right? So he's telling you, right? Jelly would be the same thing. Jam, right? All that stuff, right? It will be it's according to this opinion, right? According to Rambam. Some say to do shakol, right? As we said. Who's that? Tumat Adeshan and the tour. So he says he says good to do shakol, he says, the Rama.
Looks like it's boiled.
Yeah, it's okay, even if it is, it's all right. It would still be, yeah. But it says, right, if he blessed ha'etz, right, he full obligation, even according to the Ashkenazi custom. So he says that's what seems to be the main, the main idea. In other words, the main halacha here. So in other words, the Rama seems to side theoretically with, the Rambam, but just he said the custom, is by Ashkenazim, is like the shakol, something like that. So but I'll tell you, practically speaking, I've seen this already, a zillion times. The Ashkenazim make on this shakol, this stuff. That's their custom, That would also include, by the way, like applesauce, something like that. Same thing. So what is applesauce? Just pureed apples, right? That's what it is, Okay, so yeah, that's what we got. Yeah. So we'll go on, we'll move on. But you see here, the next one is talking about the honey, right? That comes from the dates, and he says that regarding that it's shakol. So we'll see, right? Maybe it is shakol, the honey. So we'll see how he describes this over here. And we'll see what the difference is. So you know what he describes over here? He says, right, that this honey that comes out of the dates is like it drips out, like it just oozes out of there. And that's why it's shakol. It's not really, so you know what that means? It's just like it's a liquid, it's not really a part of the fruit. It's like just some liquid that comes out of the fruit. So if that's what you're talking about, right, that honey, the date honey, so then it will be shakol, So yeah,
Maybe what you were talking about before is like a date paste or something, where you just kind of smush
a date spread, yeah, like date spread, paste, yeah, spread, something like that, right? In other words, I'll tell you what the difference is, right? Basically, it's very simple to understand. The difference is that when it's like the fruit itself, and it's just mashed up, so the blessing doesn't change according to the Rambam. You know what I mean? But here's the thing, right? This date honey, the way he describes it, it's not mashed fruit. What it is, it's a liquid that oozes out of there. That's why it's shakol. And now I understand, right? So if that's what you're talking about, right? That date honey, so then it's going to be shakol. But we're going to see right here. Let's read the Beit Yosef and we'll see how he learns this out, right? I'm just jumping a little bit ahead here. Okay. And by the way, that applies to also fruit juices, right? Same thing, On fruit juice, we make shakol. Right? Why is that? Because it's not really the fruit itself, it's just the juice that comes out of it. It's not the fruit itself. This is the reason why I make shakol.
What about like a smoothie or something like that?
Yeah, so you have to tell me what's in there, right? Depends on the ingredients.
Depends on like if you had like a mango smoothie or something, or
I'm sorry?
If you had like a mango smoothie or something like that.
Yeah, so according to this, right, it would really depend, I mean, first of all, you have to see what the majority ingredients are there,
Okay.
I don't know what the majority is in there. So it would really depend on several factors. We're going to go through all these laws about how to determine these things. But what do you call it? But as we said, right, the basic idea we're learning from here is that if it's the fruit itself, it's the same blessing. If it's not the fruit, it's just something that oozes out, right? The paste, the fruit, the stuff, that stuff, right? So that's going to be shakol. Okay, so anyway, right, let's see what we got here. Uh, so it says the two are like this, right? Very simple. When you have honey coming out, right, oozing out of these dates, it's going to be shakol. Sham hai duvsha t'tamre mebrachin al shakol. So it says the Gemara like that, right? That we do shakol. כתוב תוספות, so Tosfot says, מברכים עליו שהכל, בכל משכין, בכל מיני פירות, right? So it's the same thing also applies to any fruit juice, right? As we said, it's all שהכל. bar mitirosh, except one thing, right? Which is wine, right? Grape juice. That's a different story. Veitzhar, right? And also the olive oil, right? That's not going to be, shakol. Like we said, we're going ola. It says that coming to is arguing with the halachot gedolot, right? Shepershu de mayre shenatan letochan mayim. So he says, right, that we're talking about they also added some water in there. Uh-huh. Okay, so וגם רבנו יונה כתב כדברי התוספות. So רבנו יונה also says like תוספות. וגם הראש, right? So in other words, they seem to agree, right, that it's shakol. Because it's like fruit juice, basically. That's what it is, It's oozing out of there. It's not the fruit itself. Okay, so כתב דברי התוספות, גם הראש כתב דלא נהיר דברי הלכות גדולות. So he also doesn't agree with the הלכות גדולות, the ראש. ואחר כך כתב ואפשר דטעמה דגאון משום דבקרה כתיב. So he says, you know what? It could be the reason why the Gaon said this, right? Who's the Gaon over here? Right? So the Gaon is the halachot gedolot, right? He was a Gaon. Right? His name is Rabbi Udai Gaon. Okay, so anyway, right? Mishum the Bekara Ketiv, it says in the verse, but the Vash, right? It says the Vash, the honey, but lo Ketiv Tamarim doesn't say that it's made out of dates. So we're talking about that stuff that oozes out, by itself. Right? From the dates. So it's considered to be a part of the seven species. So according to Halachot Gedolot, it's ha'etz, right? So there is a machloket here about this. And also afterwards it's going to be al ha'etz. So it doesn't resemble what comes out of the pomegranates, and also from the figs, and also the apples. Because those, right, you have to you got to squeeze them to press them, right? You got to smash them. But this stuff comes out by itself. Right? אבל הזב מאליו, דמרים, היינו דבש האמור בפסוק עד כאן כיוצא בזה. So there you go, right? So the halachot gedolot is saying basically, right, that since it comes out by itself without any intervention, so therefore the blessing is going to be borei pri ha'etz. Why? Because it's really a part of the fruit. It's not really a juice. Because the juice comes out when you squeeze it, right? When you press it. Okay, there you go. So we're learning a lot of stuff over here, a lot of important stuff. Good stuff here. Okay, so let's move on. I know the Bash, so that's the reason why he gives the reason of the Rambam, but the Rambam says Katab Peret B'chet, right? It says the Rambam Devash Tabarim Mevarech Alav Shakol. The Rambam says it's Shakol. Velo Chilek Klal, right? He didn't differentiate between this and that, right? All this stuff comes out by itself, right? They have to squeeze it, blah blah blah. When you read Shadiyek Rabenu, לכתוב ועל דבר שזב בהם shakol. So it seems like the Tur also said, right, that it's shakol lomar dafilu bezav mevarech, even if it comes out by itself, mevarech shakol. V'chol sheken b'yotzei al yidei kedisha. All the more so if you squeeze it, right, if you press it. והגאות השני כתוב שיש אומרים שמברך על דבש תמרים דבורי פרי אדמה. Right, so there is another posek, right, who says that's going to be hadama. וכל הפוסקים חולקים על ספר הזו, but he says nobody agrees with this, right? Everybody argues with that. Okay, so that's the story there. And then, right, we're going to continue with the juices, right, as we mentioned already. It says like so as we said, right, when it comes to fruit juice, it's always going to be shakol, basically. And again, right, what's the reason why? Because it's not really part of the fruit. It's just like, this, fluid that flows out of there. So it says Sham, it's over there, it's also brought down. That which we said, right, that we bless on this honey, Shakol, Mishum de Ziyah be'almahu, because it's a Ziyah, right? You know what Ziyah is? It's like sweat, it's a sweat of the fruit. That's why they call it, right? We call that fruit juice, right? We don't call it sweat. Okay, whatever, it's all the same. Damina kaman Tana Detanya Devash Tamarim Yain Tefuchim V'chometz Zivonot Sivaniyot B'shar Me Perot Shel Terumat Rabbi Eliezer Mechayev Keren B'chomesh. So he says, right, that all these fruit juices, Rabbi Eliezer, right, requires you to pay the principal and the 1/5 if you expropriate it, right, from the Kohanim. But Rabbi Yeshua Poter, Rabbi Yeshua absolves you, Rabbi Yeshua. Rashi explains the chometz sifoniot, right? Sofer anavim. That's talking about right, these overly ripe grapes. Shen mitbashtin leolam. Oh, so he says, right, they never become ripe. Just the opposite, right? Ve'osin mehem chometz, and they make vinegar from there because it never ripens, this stuff. But Rabbi Yeshua poter the ziyah be'alma'u. But Rabbi Yeshua absolves this because it's just sweat, right? As we said. Ve'en sham truma chal alav. So it's therefore the name of truma doesn't really fall on it. Doesn't take effect. Ve'en lecha pri hanitan lemashke ela zeitin ve'anavim. So it says really, only two fruits are made, for its juice, right? Which is what? Grapes and olives, right? For the olive oil. Bilvad, v'hainu kamar bar Rashi, like the Rabbi said. V'chein pasak Rambam also passes this way in Perek Chet. Ve'af al pi shekatuv be'agot asheri. Even though it says agot asheri, de'afshar de'mavachin borei pri adama. Kol poskim cholkim alav. Even he says it's possible to do adama. He says, but all the poskim don't agree with that. So basically, right, what do we learn from here? That according to the halacha, even though it's a machloket, right, on this honey, right, we bless shakol, and also on the fruit juices as well. Okay, so let's see Shulchan Aruch, and I guess we'll stop there. Let's see what we got here. Let's see. So says Shulchan Aruch, Devash Hazab Mitmarim. Right? You have the honey, right? Comes out of the dates. It oozes out, right? That's what he's saying. Mevarech alav shakol. That's going to be shakol. Same thing also applies to fruit juices, right? So orange juice is shakol, right? That's the way it is, right? Except, right, the olives and grapes, right? Mevarech shakol. Right, so those are the exceptions, The rest of them is going to be shakol, everything else. Those two are considered to be prime, juices, right, which have their own blessing at a higher level, more prominent. Okay, great. So you guys want to do another one, or should we stop? It's up to you. We have like 5 minutes. So it's up to you.
Yes, Kavod Harav, let's do another one.
Okay. You're not in the mood to run away? You're not in the mood to run? Okay. If you're not, okay, so we can do another one. We can try. Okay. All right. I see you want to get your money's worth, so I'm gonna give you your money's worth. Okay. So let's see what we got here. Actually, you know what? This is a part of the this Shulchan Aruch is also from this Beit Yosef. So we don't have to do more Beit Yosef. We'll just do one more Shulchan Aruch and that's it, I guess. I guess. Yeah, that sounds good. I can live with that. So it says over here, right? Sofei anavim she'enam mitpashtim leolam, right? So you have, as we said, right, these grapes which do. Not ripen, basically. So what does that mean? They remain bitter all the time. וכן על הנובלות שהם תמרים שבשלם בשרפם החום ויבשו מברך שהכל, right? So two things he mentions over here, right? Which is, one is the those unripe grapes, they don't ripen, they just, so as we said, right, what do they do with them? They make vinegar, from those grapes. So that one, and also we have another type, which is a type of dates, which they're like, they're burned by the sun, so, and they're dried out, so they don't have such a great taste. Pretty right. So they're like these, both of them are inferior, right? So therefore the bracha shakol. That's the way it is. Inferiority brings you down, right, to shakol. You go into shakol land. That's the way it is. Okay, great. So I guess we'll stop it here. Next time, B'ezras Hashem, we'll do Yud. Thanks for coming. Be blessed with wealth and health and happiness. Laila Tov, Chazak u'Baruch, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Kavod
bless.
Harav, thank you so much.
Okay.